Success transcends cities. As one of the world's most respected business leaders, I know what it takes. Join me now as I sit down with fellow leaders and we share our insights into how you can be successful. My name is Jeffrey Hayzlett, and this is All Business. As we've all experienced, the way we do business, work as a team, and daily interactions has drastically changed. As we work towards the new norm, how do we make working together more effective and build stronger ties along the way? That's the big question. And my guest today is here to help leaders strengthen connections while having a more productive team. Dr. Betty Johnson is president of Bridging the Difference and author of Making Virtual Work, How to Build Performance and Relationships. Dr. Betty, welcome to All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Hello, it's so nice to be here, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me.
And we're virtual too, and it works.
Yes, it does.
Let me ask you the first question. We were forced to move to a virtual way of doing business to now having to work in what we call a hybrid world. In order to be successful as leaders, we need to make this an effective pivot. What's the biggest reason teams and leaders are struggling to make the hybrid system work?
Well, I think the struggle comes from resistance, in a word. It is here to stay, despite our desire, many people's desire to have everybody back in the office and return to the old days with which we were so comfortable, especially leaders, executives, are very comfortable in the in-person environment. It's so familiar, and this is the way we've learned to lead, is by being able to make those spontaneous in-person connections with people. So there's a reason why we miss everybody being all together. And of course, there are also some compelling tax reasons why you want all those backsides in seats, but it's not realistic. Not this year, not next year, not ever. And the reason I say that is because globally distributed teams have been here for a while. We just got dissatisfied with that dynamic when it became pervasive, and those who lived in the same city as us were now also virtual. The reason we became so dissatisfied, I maintain, is because we were trying to apply those norms with which we as leaders were so comfortable in a different context. And those norms failed us. So we wore people out, we created disenfranchisement, we contributed to the big quit, which is now what many of my clients are calling the great resignation. Others call it the great reshuffle, but at the end of the day, what happens to me as an executive is people quit and I have to replace them. So this churn of talent is real, and it's not going away either, even with a recession, because people have found that they can bargain for the work environment that they choose. So it's up to us as leaders to be adaptive. You know, Ron Heifetz has been banging the table on adaptive leadership for some time now. And here we have the perfect petri dish for adaptive leadership. So let's start changing up the composition of what's in that dish and get better results.
Well, I want to ask myself, can I teach an old dog new tricks? I mean, I like the way we're working today, meaning virtual from different offices. I've been doing it all my career. I've never, even though I've had an office, I'm never hardly there. And I've always done it virtually, but I do love working from home. And I'm even seeing some of the major, corporation executives saying they're not going back into the office full time, at least. So can we teach an old dog new tricks?
Well, So I consider myself an old dog, right? I've been around the block a few times, and I'm guessing from your comment that you have as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And if I can learn new tricks, anyone can.
Yeah.
What we need is a different motivation for those new tricks. And so that's a big part of what my book is about. What is your motivation as a leader? Is your motivation to control or enable? Is your motivation to feel good about you and your status and your ability to make decisions? Or is your motivation to enhance the capabilities of your people to do their work? Is your motivation to hog leadership, or is your motivation to distribute it? This is really all about getting from where you want to be from where you are now to where you want to be. And we know, study after study shows us, this is not by just simply employing tactics. It's about changing up the way you think about things.
Yeah, it's getting to the core and the source of who you are and the way you want to operate. You know, everybody's calling this like the great resignation. You kind of mentioned that. I look at it as the great transformation, meaning it, you know, if we look at it as a great resignation, we're almost saying we lost something. Someone loses here. It's not good. Someone loses, someone wins. In my opinion, this is really a great transformation. This is just a different way of doing it. And we're getting to a holistic kind of way of doing it, a better way of doing it, and still getting the results that we want, and sometimes better.
I completely agree with you. And what I like about the way you're framing this is the phrase, the great resignation, or the big quit, or the great reshuffle, or whatever we want to call it.
Negative.
When we use that language, we disempower ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We're saying, I can't control this.
Right.
And I'm here to say, you can absolutely influence what you're experiencing in terms of turnover. You and how you lead has everything to do with whether you keep your people. I mean, sure, there are people who will jump for a bigger pay increase. But when they go to a place where they don't experience the kind of leadership that they did with you, that they so enjoyed, where they thrived, they come back.
Yeah, we lost a few people toward the end of COVID, but that was a normal kind of thing. But out of our team, it was not a major resignation like I've seen with other companies. And I kind of pride our team in doing that, and how we kind of grasp onto the virtual side, team meetings, a little bit of, water cooler stuff, which gets me to this next question. How can we stop wasting time in video meetings without sacrificing work relationships?
Well, that's the subject of a 276-page academic research paper and an 85-page book that boils it down. But really, I guess the way I can be most helpful to your listeners is to say, there are two things that you really need to do. These are table stakes. And if you're not doing them, you need to start now. The first is you need to have a target outcome every time you call a meeting, and don't keep it to yourself. Put it in the subject line of the invite. If you're calling a meeting and you in the subject line, you say weekly team meeting, you're failing. Yeah. And here's why. You're not showing your people how they need to come to the meeting, what to get ready for, how to positively anticipate. This is going to be a good meeting. This is going to be a useful investment of my time, and I am going to speak and be heard. So whatever that target outcome is, whether it is to make some decisions about how to mitigate risks, whether it is to discuss and decide upon what our work in the office rule is going to be, put that, what's going to be accomplished in the meeting, in the subject line, so people know, A, what are they saying yes to when they accept your invitation? And then B, when they're racing from the previous meeting into your meeting, what do they need to be teed up to talk about, ready to problem solve to? Marty Seligman, when he names the 5 dimensions for well-being, accomplishment is the 5th of his PERMA model. But even Martin Seligman, rock star of well-being, says, for me, accomplishment trumps everything. It is what I need to experience the most in order to be healthy psychologically. So tee people up for that accomplishment. And the second thing is really an inverse practice, counterintuitive. And that is to make time for small talk right at the front of your agenda. Put it in the agenda. My research participants say they want 10 minutes of small talk. Now that's if it's a 20-minute meeting or an hour-long meeting. Why? Because if we don't make space for people to authentically connect with each other in a way that's not structured or orchestrated, these round robin check-ins, that's not small talk. That's the leader being the puppet master and staying at the center as the hub with other people being spokes. We're talking about an integrated conversation where anybody who wants to chime in on their weekend, their vacation plans, or what's happening in the world or this country in terms of the things that are on their mind. When you carve out space in your agenda for that, watch how on time people will show up, because they're craving authentic connection. And then for people who are kind of like me, so driven by accomplishment that small talk drives them crazy. Well, they can show up a few minutes late, right? Get that last email out the door and then show up for the last few minutes of small talk. So it gives this leeway for people to arrive late without being disrupting the meeting flow. It gives people who need social connection. Some people need it more than others. It gives them a place to have it. And here's a little tidbit that I just find fascinating. Those who are self-described as introverts benefit more from that 10 minutes of small talk than extroverts do.
Wow.
So think about this. When you're an introvert, you process information internally. So when we're in the business of a meeting, I'm soaking up all this information, what I'm hearing, what I'm reading, and I'm trying to make sense of it so that I can then ask a question. It takes me longer than the extroverts.
So, Dr. Betty, we're always needing to evolve. How should leaders rethink what engagement is in a meeting? Because sometimes I get frustrated, well, I'll ask a question and everybody just sits there for a little bit, and then someone takes a spark and goes first. And then, so how can I reset the engagement?
Well, there are two things with this as well. So the first is, let's get a common definition of engagement. Csikszentmihalyi, who coined the term flow, says engagement is you are so into the work that you lose your sense of time. You're so enjoying what's happening that you're all in. So there's no temptation to multitask because you're loving it. So we need to create that kind of engagement rather than measuring engagement as to whether people have their camera on and they're staring at it. Right? That's not engagement. That's performance. That's performing arts. That's being on stage and striving to create an impression versus truly being engaged in the work. And the way that we create engagement in the work is we don't just tell people this is what we're going to talk about. We craft an agenda in the form of questions, and we assign each question in the agenda to the attendee who has the most subject matter expertise on that question. When you do that, you distribute the leadership responsibility of the meeting, and you say to people, here's an invitation. I want you to talk about this particular question that we need an answer to in order to hit that target outcome that's in the calendar invite.
What about a leader? Let me ask you a question about a leader, because I'm the chairman, CEO, but I don't usually lead the meetings. I let other people lead the meetings. Is that a good thing, bad thing, what?
Well, I think it depends on how the CEO is thinking about letting other people lead. In other words, are you providing the example that if we don't have a target outcome for this meeting, we're not having a meeting?
We don't. That's a definite for my meetings. Like, what is the purpose? We usually talk about what is the purpose of the meeting right up front, so we all know. We do our small talk. We do a lot of that, and then all of a sudden, say, well, we got it. Let's get moving. And then we usually say, okay, what's the purpose of the meeting? So we all know where we're coming from. Usually that's stated ahead of time, but not everybody reads everything. Not everybody pays attention.
Well, so I want to really just dig in on this. What is our purpose? Where are we coming from is one thing. A target outcome is where are we going and where are the goalposts on this football field? How will we know when we have a touchdown? So having that goal that in this meeting, we are going to hit this target outcome gives people a way to know what contributions are relevant and what contributions aren't. How should the meeting be designed? How should it not be designed? Who should be there? Who gets a buy? It doesn't have to be at this weekly meeting because they're not going to be contributing. So that nuance between purpose and target outcome is absolutely essential, and it's looked over by most people.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, because everybody's done this, but I want to talk about multitasking. What's the impact of multitasking during a meeting? Now, I do my best never to do it during an interview, but sometimes we do it during the meeting. We check our phone, we see an email, we respond to a text real quick. What's the impact of that?
The impact of multitasking can be really positive or negative. I think the bigger question is, how do we keep people from doing the negative kind of multitasking, right? So multitasking can be really good. If I'm making a note, it looks as if I'm disengaged, right? I'm doing it right now, I'm making a note because I want to remember. And so that's not disengagement. That's thinking. And many, many people must look away from the visual distraction, the animation, to look down to a quiet place and make a note. It's how they process. So point one, don't think people are disengaged just because they're looking down. It doesn't mean they're necessarily checking their cell phone. The second thing is, if the conversation is useful to them, they will not do the useless multitasking activity because they don't want to miss anything. So the answer to how to avoid that disruptive multitasking is, if someone's contributions aren't essential to the meeting and what they're going to hear from other people is not essential to their job, find another way to get their voice in the room. Don't have them attend an hour meeting and speak for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And the other thing, I can remember sitting in a meeting with a client, a very, very well-known individual. Everybody's a world-renowned expert, and was doing some work with him and his team. And I remember I was taking notes on my computer while I was sitting there at the conference room, and he yelled at me and said, "Shut that computer down." And I said, "I'm taking notes." He said, "You are not. Shut the computer down." I shut the computer down, and I fired the client on the spot and left. Because again, didn't respect the way that I needed to take notes, the way I wanted to do it, because I don't write things on paper anymore and so forth. I think it's interesting. Where does this gets into the balance of power, maybe a balance of responsibility for the meeting experience? Who does it reside in? And whether it's a meeting by video, a conference call, or in person, who does that responsibility really reside?
The person who initiates the meeting and is the facilitator, or the person who kicks it off, the one who's responsible for crafting at least the draft agenda, they are responsible for setting the stage. And setting the stage is everything. If you think of a meeting as a social construct, which Helen Schwartzman back in 1986 made a case for this. We show up and we think it's a work tool, and maybe it's that, but it's really a social construct where there are these tacit agreements in play. And when people do things that offend us, we get upset. And when people do things that make us feel good, we want to work with them more. It's social. So the way you set the stage for this social encounter is you do things like putting the target outcome in the invite, deciding who needs to be there and who doesn't to hit that target, crafting your agenda in the form of questions. And here's the thing, if you don't have any questions, you don't have a meeting. You have a big fat tail. So record yourself and send it out instead of wasting people's synchronous time, right? Yeah, so the responsibility lies with that person. And then if you do a good job in setting the stage, your meeting attendees will be able to come and share the ownership of what happens in the meeting. But there are some things you need to do, and that's what's in the recipe in my book.
I got time for 2 quick questions. So the first one I want to know is, what should all companies make sure to incorporate when planning virtual and hybrid meetings, so they're most impactful and beneficial for everyone? What's the most important piece of that?
The most important piece of that is to have empathy. So this is your North Star. And empathy in this context means you understand how your people are feeling cognitively. And then you also relate to it emotionally, their feelings, not yours. Oh, I feel the same as you. No, you don't feel the same as me, right? We all feel differently. So let it resonate, but don't try to mimic it. This is impossible. And then design your meetings so that you're giving people what they need for that emotional state. Now, this just sounds very kumbaya and woo-woo and, too soft. And I don't have time for that. But I'm insisting that you do have time because it's a time saver. You do have time because it reduces your turnover. So it's that empathy that's really the cornerstone of that 85-page book. What does empathy look like in the remote and hybrid meeting context? What exactly do you do? It's not rocket science, but it will change up what happens in your meetings and what happens after.
Yeah, and it'll also turn you from the great resignation into the great transformation. I'll guarantee you that if you do that. All right, one last quick question, 30 seconds left to go. What is the one thing leaders should start implementing today to increase productivity and build stronger team bonds besides empathy?
Well, it all starts with empathy. So it's not just besides, it's embedded. I would say, because cameras are so contentious, poll your team and find out how they feel about camera use. Start there to meet their needs. If people don't want cameras on, if they don't think they're essential to the meeting, make them optional.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it's tough to do if you're a TV company, video company, but that I could get it. All right, we've been talking with Dr. Betty Johnson, president of Bridging the Difference and author of the bestseller, Making Virtual Work, How to Build Performance and Relationships. I know I learned a few things. Dr. Betty, thanks for being a part of All Business right here on C-Suite Radio and C-Suite TV.
Thank you.
Hey, at the end of every show, I like to talk about what I learned. And I like the way she said, frame what the outcome of the meeting is going to be. Now, I always do that with our team, right? The first thing I say is, what are we going to accomplish from this meeting? Now, she's saying doing it a little bit nicer, and also to make sure you put that up front. I've always put in there our weekly meetings, our ops meetings, whatever those might be, but it would be great to put the real big topic in there, wouldn't it? And the big accomplishment. So that's something that I learned, and it will be a little bit easier for everybody to know, so they won't have to second guess or go looking for the agenda and everything else that you got to have. It would be great to be able to have. That's what I learned right here from Dr. Betty Johnson from Charlotte, North Carolina. And of course, what a great guest right here on All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on C-Suite Radio and C-Suite TV. Don't forget, tell your friends.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Bestseller TV. I'm Taryn Winter-Brill. We're here with Troy Korsgaden. He is the author of Inflection Point, Redefining Your Role in the Insurance and Financial Services Industry When the Existing Model No Longer Works. It's great to have you with us, Troy.
Thanks for having me, Taryn. I'm excited.
Likewise. This is your 7th book covering financial services and the insurance industry. So tell us about your passion in terms of, writing so much about this industry.
You bet. And so I started in 1983, and I started as a practitioner, meaning that I dealt with the public selling product. And I grew that into a business, but I also grew it into a consulting opportunity to help other carriers in the industry to grow bigger and stronger distribution. Today we don't call them agencies, we just call it distribution. And it's easy to get excited every day because there's so many new things, technology, ways to deliver product. And so I wake up excited.
Was this a family business at all, or were you groomed to do this, or, what piqued your interest?
So I wasn't groomed to do it. I grew up in a small town called Visalia, California. I still live here today, but I do business mostly in North America, but all over the world, dealing with carriers, ones that you would definitely know, and then some you might not even have heard of. But everybody has the same need. And so I got into the business just because it was a great opportunity for me. After I'd gone through high school, I decided not to go to college and I needed a profession. And so I got into the business, and just luckily I woke up every day, still do, excited about what I'm doing, and the opportunity to learn and grow is just endless in our industry.
What did you like so much about it? It's hard to find something that resonates with you and kind of feeds your soul. So just curious, because this is so specific.
So I'm a learner. I like to learn. I've got a motto, never stop learning. And insurance is so broad. We say financial services, but it's insurance and financial services. And whether it's business insurance, personal insurance, specialty insurance, corporation insurance, it's endless. So you just really can never stop learning because there's so much being thrown at you.
Yeah. I'm curious, we're going to get into the inflection point in a second, but how would you, since you've been doing this since, I think you said 1983, if you can summarize the changes you've seen? I would imagine, digitization and the advent of the internet had to change everything. I mean, like so many industries, but I'm curious, from your vantage point, since you've been doing this a very long time, in a very specific way, your thoughts on that and what your experience was.
Yeah, I started in 1983 when they gave you a big old book of business called the phone book. And you literally
what is that? A phone book? I've heard of that.
Exactly. And we just started dialing for dollars, right? And that's how you did it in every industry, not just insurance. And it changed. And I like to say today, there's a tsunami of change just in the last year and a half. The waves are crashing against the shore. But as you look at the past, there was always massive change, whether it was technology. I mean, I started when you did paper applications, and we used to kid press hard. And if you're my age, you would know that if you're listening, it meant that there's 3 copies below it. And so you had to press hard so all of them went through as you were doing the application. Today, everything is electronic. Today, everything is digital. There's change going on in the way we deliver the product, the way we underwrite the product, the way we market the product. I mean, I could talk for hours.
Yeah, no, just so let's talk in the time we do have on the inflection point, because in the book you say that we've been using the same, or you've been using the same model, and I guess that means we, for 10, 20, 30, almost 50 years. So I'm curious, why now? Why has, what was the model? How and what is it now? And tell us more about this inflection point, why we need to pivot.
You bet. So let's just say 10 years ago, because you say there's a lot of change in technology and whatnot, the insurance industry historically has been really slow to catch up to that digital, that technology, but they just weren't hitting the mark the same way retail and other industries have done it. And so they're just in the last couple of years, it's not that they didn't have it on their roadmap, it just was a long roadmap. So now the insurance industry, the big change is they're not just spending billions of dollars, they're executing, because execution is everything. So ideas are awesome, but you got to get them to the public. And today, and this is what Inflection Point is about, the customer is in control. The customer has the keys to the kingdom, just like they do in retail.
Yeah.
And I'll take you back as we talk along on how we got here, but it's now the gas is being poured on the fire.
When did the customer all of a sudden have control? Would you say it's been a gradual change, or is this, you're writing this book now, and now's the inflection point? Did this happen overnight, or how would you put that? How would you put it into words?
Yeah, I've got to be careful with my words because I love my industry. So we have had great success in the insurance and financial services industry. Great success. One of the best business models, if you will, in the history of business.
Right.
But very slow. But the slow part helped us too, right? Because there are certain fundamentals of insurance that have to be practiced. And so there's got to be thought put behind what you're doing to implement digital, what you're doing to implement customer being in control. But up until this point, the customer was kind of in control, but the insurance industry told them when to buy, what to buy, how to buy. And you know what? We're living in an omni-channel world, and it started with Walmart, not Amazon. Amazon started coming in with their big boxes, and everybody was afraid of Amazon. But the businesses that retooled and updated their model are actually stronger today because of value-added services than they were before. Walmart didn't put everybody out of business. Likewise, Amazon, great business model, awesome, but it will not get rid of the personalization of doing business with somebody. And that's the big change. The customer realizes they're in control and they want to say when, how, and what to buy, but they still need professional advice. And because it's more complex than buying a refrigerator.
In the title, when you refer to your role, who is this book for, right? What roles do you cover? Because like you said, it's a massive industry. We're talking kind of dual industries here. So what is, who is the target audience here, and what is your hope?
So everyone in the insurance industry, and it's a fabulous question because most of the books I've written up to this point have been directed at folks like me who started as practitioners. And although I work with carriers as a consultant, they still hire me to work with their distribution ecosystem. And I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
The advisor, and we used to just say agent, but the advisor, because some of them today are employees, and they're not contractors the way I grew up in the system. Some of them are independent, some of them are exclusive, some of them are just totally captive. But an advisor helps a client, whether they're doing it from 2,000 miles away or 2 miles away. And so this book is written for anybody, a team member, an agency firm owner, a broker, a carrier specifically, because carriers are retooling their business models, and it all comes down to the local community.
Right. What do you mean by carrier exactly?
Sure. So in the insurance industry, you have carriers. I won't name them, but you know the big brand names that you see on TV. Some carriers are specifically driven towards auto and home and umbrella and life insurance, maybe some mutual funds. Others are specifically for business insurance. And you know the big brands in business insurance. I could name them all to you.
Right.
We're all now in the same ball game. It's just that some of us are in a different inning. So my goal with this book is to say, don't take a seventh inning stretch, stay in the game and retool your business model, because we're moving as an industry, and a carrier is a representative, a corporation that represents an entity who offers products and services. But we're all going to be offering products and services in an open platform product solution. And I talk about it in the book because the customer is going to demand it. They're going to want to know what's available, whether they buy it or not, so they can make a decision that's best for themselves, their family, or their business.
Right. And you mentioned prior this seamless distribution ecosystem, which you mentioned a lot in the book, which I thought was an interesting way to coin it. Tell us more about that. How do you, does everybody have the capability to have this? You know, what's the directive from your expert perspective rather?
Actually, it's an arms race right now. The money being spent, the time, and believe me, time is more valuable than the money. You've got 10,000 people working for you, 50,000 people working for you, 100,000.
Yeah.
If each of them spends an hour on something, that's a lot of expense, right? And it's a lot of effort, and time you can't get back, money you can.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you look at the seamless distribution ecosystem. When I grew up, it was agents. And then you had the paper application that would come in through direct marketers, the 1-800 telephony. Then you had the digital. And now those same digital companies, those same telephony companies are now getting local distribution. And they're surrounding the customer anywhere, anyhow, anytime, whatever they want. And it all works together. And when I say seamless, Taryn, what I'm saying here is everybody's doing it a little bit, but they don't have a seamless. You know, when you leave the ecosystem and go get shoved off somewhere else, you can feel it. When it's seamless, you feel like you're just dealing with one entity, whether it's Taryn, Troy, whether it's somebody in Peru.
Right.
It doesn't, it's just all seamless.
So that said, you know, if there's a nugget here, if someone is watching this and saying, gosh, okay, I need to pivot here. What do they need to do? Obviously, we don't want to give away all the secrets because we want people to read the book, but in a nutshell, you know, what exactly is the pivot?
The pivot is to stop and assess where you are. How did I get here? And then where do I want to go?
Right.
There's been great success I talked about in the insurance industry. You cannot deny it. Great service to people. And now the customer is in control. So everything we need to do is to put the customer first in everything, every transaction, every interaction that we have with them. Every interaction must be a meaningful interaction, not just go through the motions. And so putting the customer first in everything we do, everybody has the ability to do that. And then as you go along, you're adding more value-added services or information and opportunity for the client. If you're good, they're going to buy your product as the solution to their need.
Would you say, I mean, in the day and age we're living in, Troy, are companies truly not putting the customer first after all we know at this point? You know, especially the customer obviously is in control with the advent of the internet. You know, you can Google a lot of information on your own without having to reach out to a carrier, so to speak. So do you really find that there's a lag in putting the customer first in so many different businesses?
Yeah, in all industries, but I'm going to talk about the insurance industry. I went to a lot of conferences in my 30 plus years in the business as a speaker. So you listen to the corporation talk about their goals and aspirations, and they come up with a slogan, all of them. Our customer is at the center of everything we do. But then they told them when to buy, what to buy, how to buy, where to buy. So they were sincere, but they weren't delivering on the promise. Today, you've got to deliver on the promise because the customer knows when you're not doing it. And you and I both know this, whatever industry we're dealing with, and I'm not going to pick on any other industries, but we experience it every day through customer service. Your ad says this, you're not doing it, okay? Deliver for them. Give me what I need. And it doesn't always have to make me happy. Be honest with me, be transparent with me, but deliver and put me first in everything you do.
So that said, Troy, who does that well? Can you give us a real time, real life example of a company to emulate in terms of their process?
Yeah, look you can't deny Amazon. Why do they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger? And so when I talk publicly, right now is not the time to be out talking to big crowds, but I do it through virtual. I do it in person when it available. And I always say, when was the last time you saw Amazon say, we've got the lowest prices? Show me an ad. It doesn't happen.
Right.
Now, are they competitive? I'm sure they are. But it's about ease of doing business, making people's lives easier. So I'm not saying everybody should go out and do Amazon. I'm just saying, look, if you want to look at what they do right, they deliver on everything they say they're going to deliver on. I can give you other industries that do it, but again, it's around the fringes, and we've got to get to that seamless part where we do it every time. And it's just like McDonald's. If I owned a McDonald's and somebody comes to get fries, whether they're getting them from the window or the counter, if Susie or Johnny is the fry cook and 100 orders come in, I expect 100 orders to be correct.
Right.
Now, there's going to be times they're not, but my expectation is it's fulfilled 100% of the time. And that's why McDonald's is successful. They have priorities,
Yeah.
they have standards, and they execute to them. Execution is everything.
Right. And speaking of Amazon, you talk in the book about how, Kohl's and Amazon, because Kohl's is in a turbulent time, they started accepting Amazon returns. What do you think of that move? And can that template be used in other industries?
Yeah, the jury's out, right? I wrote about it in the book, and I took a risk that it would work or not, but it's just a great example. I like Kohl's. And I've got a Kohl's literally less than a block away from my office. I'm more apt to go in there because I can return something from Amazon and look around. I mean, that's the whole idea, is to get people traffic. Internet traffic's one thing, but in person is best. I don't care what you do. It doesn't matter whether you're retail. It doesn't matter whether you're a car selling cars. It doesn't matter whether you're in insurance and financial services. Meaningful interactions create revenue because people connect and they buy more in person.
Yeah, absolutely. That foot traffic is key. So let me ask you this, Troy. Why haven't other companies gone on that bandwagon?
So in the insurance industry, I would submit to you they all are. As a consultant, we get requests for proposals on helping with what we call transformation. And that means to just transform the company, not the agency firm,
Okay.
but the whole company and the way they deliver the products and services. So I would submit to you that they're doing it. They were doing it a year ago. But again, the gas has been poured on here in the last 12, 18 months like crazy because they have to deliver. You can't be too slow. Slow, cautious is good until you get run over. And so I think that all the insurance and financial services companies are moving this way. Now it's going to be who's going to make the cut.
Yeah. We're out of time, but I did have one final question for you. Where do you see the future of your industry going amidst these turbulent times that we're in with COVID and working from home, and doing our interviews this way via Zoom? Has the industry changed, and has it changed for the better or not so much?
Yeah, I think the industry has changed for the better. It will change for the better. But I would submit to you, this is some news for your listeners. In the insurance and financial services industry, it won't be just offering a product and saying that's the only solution on earth, because it isn't. It never was. So it's the admission to say, look, we have an awesome product. Here is the rest of the products in the hemisphere that you can look at, everything we've got. And we believe ours is better, but we want you to make a decision based on facts, not based on just emotion. So with that being said, it's not as much about commission or revenue. It's putting the customer first without regard to revenue and commission, and the revenue and the commission will come because you're so good at what you do.
Yeah, that makes sense. The book is terrific. It's very, very specific, and you have to read it because, you do go into specialization versus expertise. Really interesting stuff, a different way to look at the industry. I've read a few books on this topic, but never those buckets specifically. So congratulations, Troy. We look forward to book number 8. Is that in the works, I think?
I'm excited. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Terrific. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again soon. And if you'd like more information on the book, just check out our website, csuitebookclub.com. That's c-suitebookclub.com. I'm Taryn Winterbrill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time right here on Bestseller TV.
Welcome to C-Suite TV Insights. I'm JJ Ramberg. Investing can be intimidating, and the average investor may feel that they're at a disadvantage compared to the wealthy and institutional investors. Well, my guest today co-founded an investing platform called iFlipInvest, and he says the traditional ways of looking at your portfolio may need a complete overhaul. Randy Tate is the CEO of iFlipInvest, and welcome, Randy.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Before we dig into what iFlip is, give me a sense of why you think the way we're looking at our portfolios or our strategy is antiquated.
Well, JJ, the key idea that we all have to realize is that volatility and uncertainty, that's the current status quo, and that's how it's going to be for a while. And it's okay. That's not a bad thing. It is what it is. All good things come to an end. We've had a tremendous run. So we're encouraging people to take the time and energy to take a second look at how they're currently investing.
And how does iFlip do that for people?
What we are is that we're an AI-driven platform that will help determine mathematically the statistical likelihood of a stock's trajectory up or down. And then based around your own, risk parameters, it will put you in the market, take you out of the market on a stock-by-stock basis, not a fund-by-fund basis. So we will put that for each individual person and treat them like they're a billionaire with a private investment manager.
What do you mean by that? Treat them like a billionaire. So billionaires right now have access to investment strategies that include machine learning, artificial intelligence in a way that the average investor doesn't?
Correct. Institutions, billionaires, they have access to tools and technologies that the retail person does not have access to. What we've done is we've taken that technology, leveled it even, and we're making it available to the general public.
Is this expensive?
In the original iteration, as we were creating this company, we set out to do 4 things: be better, beat the market, less risky, very easy to use because you're doing it yourself, and more importantly, less expensive. We are a flat subscription fee. It's as little as $5 a month. No hidden fees, no back-end fees, no trade fees, no commission fees. All the traditional fees that you'll find listed in any financial statement, we've taken them all out.
How are you able to do that?
Well, we're using technology. We are a SaaS-based model. We're a software company, software as a service. We're like an iTunes, where you pay a little monthly subscription and all the service gets done on the back end by technology. We don't need a lot of middle people. We don't need a lot of humans. We don't need lots of layers to charge. Therefore, we could actually, I never even thought about it until just now, we could even perform less, but because of the fees, provide a better return for our clients because we charge so much less. We're cheaper than 99% of the platforms out there.
Give me a sense of how this works then for the customer. I come onto your platform and what choices do I have to make?
So the way it works is you would put in your basic information you'd put anywhere else. I'm young and I'm aggressive and I want to make a lot of money I've got risk to take, so you pick either aggressive, moderate, conservative, which bucket you fall into. Based on that, you will be given a smartfolio. We have foundational smartfolios that then we have lots of other detailed ones too, but to start with, it would be foundational. Smart, are you going to be aggressive? Are you going to be conservative? Are you going to be moderate? Then it's all done for you. It's literally point and click. You can connect your bank account. You can move your brokerage account. So say you have a rollover 401k from an old job. We can literally ACAT your entire position so you don't have to take a tax hit and move it onto our platform and then let the AI take over the management of it. It's literally point and click, and then much else to do after that.
So I don't have to think. Then my money's with you. I watch it presumably grow, or at least get protected from the downside, which is, as you say, one of your big selling points. And then
Correct.
I can get it out whenever I want.
Yeah, it's as easy to move money around our platform as it is a Venmo. It's point click. You can have your money in 48 hours. It's a liquid investment.
So tell me the difference then. You've addressed it a bit, but if you can really hone in on what's the difference between this or me just putting my money into a fund like I might typically be doing now.
Yep, lots of difference, and that's what most people are doing. That's the status quo we're trying to disrupt a little bit. Let me give you some myths that Wall Street has traded out there for you, the consumer. Diversification is how they manage risk, and they do it in the form of funds. Lots of stock, your money spread out across lots of things to protect you against the volatility. Well, that actually doesn't work. The more diversified you are, the more like the market you perform, which is the volatility. We have a much smaller base, what we call smart folios, that actually move you in and out of the market based on the risk and what the AI sees. The other thing is we are the only one available to retail that is true machine learning, true AI. Big differentiator. Everything else you see, every robo you see, every automated trader you see, those are all algorithms. An algorithm is simply a mathematical formula that a human wrote and plugged into a computer to execute. We use true AI. What does that mean? Well, for an algorithm to change its rule, a human has to go in and rewrite it. Okay, we don't buy at this price today, we buy at that price, or we buy at this percentage, whatever it may be. Our AI changes its own rules. It's fed data daily by lots of other algorithms, and then it, not a human, changes the rules and establishes the risk parameters. By doing that, we become much more efficient, much more effective, and we let you with your $5,000 account perform in the markets the way an institution would with 4 or 5 billion.
Well, Randy, thank you so much. Congratulations on the company. I know it's about 5 years in, 6 years in now that you're in the early stages, and I expect to see a lot of growth from you all. So thank you so much for sharing about iFlip with us. We really appreciate. And thank you everyone for watching C-Suite TV Insights. We will see you next time right here on C-Suite TV.